So it's coming up to the US Open. Oakmont, been used 9 times before for the US Open by the USGA. Archetypal US Open course, but why is it? Let's have a look at a few holes and we'll explain all. So at a US Open, this club is always a real key. Your US Open's known for thick, rough, gnarly, heavy, nasty, and you get off the fairway in the moan stuff, other than if you're at Pinehurst where it's just waste ground. So driver's going to be massively key. It's a big, long course, it's penal and it's tough. So playing from the short grass is massively important. We saw last time around when Dustin Johnson won there, his driving was absolutely flawless. Now, there are other areas of the course which are tough as well, but you look at the winners around there, you've got Angel Cabrera, you've got Els, Dustin Johnson, Jack Nicklaus, Johnny Miller, Larry Nelson. It's a list of the greats who've won around there. So this thing is really, really important because it puts you in play, it sets you up for the rest of the hole. And if you're going to avoid the big scores, driving it well is really key. So we're going to start on the third hole here. So, as you can see, off the tee, there's the rough. It's looking you straight in the face. One of the things with Oakmont is there are a lot of semi-blind shots. So here we've got the green in the distance, but actually you can see a couple of bunkers. You can't actually see the landing zone. Now, granted for the top players, they've done their practice rounds, they've done their homework. But if you're at all unsure of yourself with the driver in hand, you want something really visible to pick out to target as your start point or a finish point, basically something to hit at. And you've got it in the distance, but you just can't see what's down there. So, this hole in particular, if you're, it's not short, 470 yard par 4, they'll be playing it slightly longer than this, but you've got to get a good tee shot down there, you've got to get it a long way down there. So if you force it just that little bit, as a right-handed golfer going for it, now I've come out of that one. We can see Church Pew bunkers up the left, one of the big features of Oakmont, bunkers up the right. Now, that's just crept into that bunker, but these are proper hazards. They're deep. They're not just target points like a lot of courses are. They're deep, they're penalising, and you just got to get out. Now, if we go the other way, those church pews, which incidentally, if you go in them this way around, you're faced with them coming back the other way. If I drag this left, hope I've dragged it left. No, I've ripped it straight down the middle. That was lovely. Let's try that one again. That's the one you want in a tournament play. So try to give it that bit extra, dragged it a little bit left, and here we go. This is the signature of Oakmont, those church pew bunkers. And what they are, as you see, it goes in there, it's not coming out. There are lots of stacked up, risen peats of turf, which form those sort of green marks in the bunker, the grass in the bunker, but you've got either you're on a steep downslope or a steep upslope. You can't shift it very far out of them. And so, you force this just that little bit, you're in those. And so you're faced with that coming the other way as well. So you can't get to the green in 2. That's at least a shot penalty, maybe even 2. Now you may say, is it better than being in thick rough, being in sand? Possibly, but you still can't shift it very far. So either side of these fairways, you're faced with thick rough, deep bunkers, and a real test off the tee. So we're on the same hole, we've moved ourselves up the fairway, we've assumed a good tee shot, easier said than done, and now what are we faced with? Well, on the screen here I've got a little marker that shows me where the flag is, but the players won't have that. It's a blind second shot, there's a stake, a little mark behind the green, but that's all you've got. You've got to trust your instinct for where the flag is, you've got to trust your caddy for the line, and considering one of the other bits we're going to come onto, which are the greens here, you miss this in the wrong place and you're left with a hellish next shot. We're going to come onto that shortly. So there's all these things that go into making you unsure about what your line is, and you've got to basically pick a spot and really commit to it. So, this has got a rise up of 20 feet. That's not insignificant. That's actually quite a bit. That's going to put 6 or 7 yards extra on the shot. But again, you have your yardage book. You know what the pin positions are. But there's still that little voice in the back of your head going, is this the right line? It's very, very hard in these circumstances, and you've got very slopey fairways, which make the shots not very easy. You've got to really pick a spot and commit. Now these players, should be pretty used to doing this, but like me here, you come off it, you miss it a little bit, bang, down the thick rough, and not a very pleasant next shot. So we're focusing today on Oakmont Major Championship course, but the mainstay of our business is custom fitting. So check out this video recently that we fitted Chris into his irons and see what improvements can be made for him. So we talked about the tee shots and some of the blind approach shots. We're now going to talk about an approach shot that we can see. We can see everything in front of us. The greens at Oakmont are spectacular. Some might say treacherous, but these greens, Oakmont have them at nearly 15 on the stimp. They pride themselves on the speed of the greens. Now, they may not be playing quite that fast for the tournament because the USGA may not want them that fast. However, they have a lot of slope and there's a lot of speed to them. So, as shown on the par 3 here, approach shots and being in control of your golf ball is massively important. So, on this sort of hole here, we got a 195. It's a bit downhill. I'm hitting a full-on 6-iron here. So obviously flying through the air, that looks quite nice. It's all going towards the green. We're thinking, well, that's a lovely shot. I'm really pleased with myself there. Now it's pitched on the edge of the green and that's gone. It's going and it's going and it's going and it's still going and it's going right to left. Now that gives you a bit of a taster into what these greens are really like. That shot, most other courses, is going to stop pretty close, at least sort of high side of the hole. Here, it's just gone 20, 30 feet. Now the greens are going to be firm, but that slope means if you miss it slightly in the wrong place, you're really in trouble, which we're just going to show you up by the green for this hole now. So we find ourselves here in that left-hand bunker by the green. So you're below the level of the surface and we know this green tilts right to left. So this side, yeah, you're in a bunker. Yes, the green sits up above you, but this side, actually not a bad miss, because what we can do, we can be nice and positive, pop it out the bunker. We've got plenty of that slope there. So actually you can see there it stalls and now comes back. We've got a backstop. So if you miss it the right side, you've actually got 2 bites of the cherry. If you get it spot on, you're pin high. If you hit it too far, it might well come back, possibly go in, but may come close. Very different when you go the other side. So for the tour players, you miss in the bunker, you're thinking, great, good chance of up and down. And to all intents and purposes, this doesn't look too bad. You've got plenty of space between the edge of the green and the pin. I've got nice, beautifully raked bunkers, as they will be at the US Open. Not that easy though, is it? It's a US Open, and this is Oakmont. If I play one really delicately, pop one up high, well, where does it go? That thing doesn't stop. Now I'm going to give this another go. That was maybe, you could argue that was maybe a little clumsy. So if I try and get a little more cutesy, a little higher, softer, that's just pitched, barely, hasn't even barely pitched on the green. It's gone, it's gone. Not even on the green. Just held the green. And I landed that in the fringe. So what that really shows you is the player who's in control of their golf ball coming into the greens, they're going to be the ones, and actually it's managing your misses. It's not necessarily just being close to the hole. We could be, you look at that steepness of the green, we're 6 foot above the pin, you've got barely a chance of making the putt, you've got to be so tentative with it. If you're 15, 20 foot below the pin, you can be much more positive and you've got a much better chance of holding that putt. Or if you miss the green, you can hold from one side, you can't from the other, and then you're racking up a big number. So just setting one up on a hole here, which is going to get a lot of chat this week. This is the 8th hole. Now, I've had to do this because the tees that it puts us on are not the US Open tees. This par 3 is 280 yards and the pin's on the front. So this is going to be a big talking point during the week. Now, at the USPGA Championships at Quail Hollow, there was one at 249, 250, 255, which was a big hole. And what was fascinating was the players were playing it really quite defensively. Long was horrible, so they were all playing short of the green, almost laying up. Be interesting to see how they play this hole. But as you can see, ball a little, the green sits a little bit below us. They're not going to be worried about the hut. You and I might be, but they're not. And yeah, 279. It's a big golf hole. So I'm going to have a clatter with my 3-wood just because I can't quite bring myself to hit driver. And ultimately, this is, again, it's your really big, tough, challenging US Open hole where essentially the golf course is saying, you better be good or you're dropping shots. So I better be good because this is basically, it's a short par 4 where I'm coming from normally, so better hulk up and give this thing a good swing. So hit it pretty well. You've got bunkers short, as you can see there, and again we've gone safe. Feel like left's dead. I've just maybe just hung it out there, not quite struck it. Look how far back I am. You know, this is one of those ones where, yeah, really managing a miss. Now actually, as a miss, not that bad. It's in the fairway. I've got a wedge to try and get up and down. But for me with this club, and this is what they were doing at Quail Hollow, they were taking a club where you think, you know, I can't get in too much trouble here. Now for me, I've got to kind of sling this one in. I'm going to give it one more go, see if I can get one drawing in there, just to try and get it back there. You know, better hit. Feels like a strong contact. Now I've overdone it. Now we've got bunker left, or worse, if I miss the bunker and go in the thick rough. Now I found the bunker, so kind of got away with one there, but you know, this, again, the margin of error on a hole like this, on a hole this long, I mean, ultimately it's just the lowest score wins, but players, we struggle to get par out of the back of our heads. And round a US Open, you kind of have to disregard par and just go, how can I minimize the shots that I'm going to lose around the course? Because it is going to take shots off you. You might get a couple back on a par 5 because they're really long, but ultimately, you know, this sort of hole, it's not an easy 3. So you've got to accept you're going to drop shots, make the most of any chances you get. But holes like this, they're just hard, and that's Oakmont US Open. So that's a bit of a roundup on Oakmont and US Opens. Big, tough courses, thick rough, challenging pin positions, challenging greens, but Oakmont really is, you know, one of the stereotypical classic US Open courses, which is why they've had 9 of them before, and this is number 10. Who do you think is going to win? Well, we might have another video coming that will give you our insights into who's going to win. So check that out when it comes out. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you for US Open.